Hello, Namaste. I welcome you all. This session of Gurubodha. I am Dr. Janardana V. Hebbar. I dedicate this and all of my works at the holy feet of my spiritual guru, Dr. A. Chandrasekhar Udupa. Today, we have two guests. One is Dr. Suhak Shirsagar, who has done incredible work spreading the healing power of Ayurveda in the US. On behalf of us, all of us, easier the community, I cordially welcome you to this session, sir. Good evening and namaste, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
And we also have Dr. Sheila Patel, who is doing very eminent work in the field of health. We'll get the introduction to her briefly. Before that, on behalf of all of us, a cordial welcome to you, ma'am. Good evening, namaste. So, before we go further, let me introduce Dr. Suhak Shirsagar for those who do not know him previously. Dr. Suhas is a classically trained Ayurvedic physician with over 35 years of clinical experience. He's a gold medalist for his research thesis at Pune University. Dr. Suhas is a best-selling author, motivational speaker, and an acclaimed educator in the field of Ayurveda and integrative medicine. He has traveled around the globe popularizing Ayurveda, yoga, meditation, and natural medicine. He has chaired and designed curriculums for several Ayurvedic schools. Dr. Suhas has formulated some very successful herbal products, generating multi-million dollars in revenues. He was featured in many popular podcasts, radio, and television shows. He is an advisor to the Chopra Foundation and is the director of Ayurvedic Healing and Integrative Wellness and Panchakarma Clinic in Santa Cruz, California. He specializes in personalized and lifestyle medicine. His popular books all are available in Amazon.com and in other places. The Hot Belly Diet, Change Your Schedule, Change Your Life, Panchakarma, The Art and Science of Vedic Counseling, and his new upcoming book is Awakened Sleep, which has been co-authored with Dr. Sheila Patel. So his website is ayurvedichealing.net. Let me share that in the chat for all of you to go through. So very eminent personality. Personally, he has been guiding in the proper direction, giving tips from time to time, how to take my career ahead and all. Thank you, Dr. Suhas, for all that you do.
Thank you. Thank you, JV. Dr. Patel, yes, go ahead.
And let me introduce Dr. Sheila Patel. MD is a board-certified family physician with a focus on integrative and lifestyle medicine. She practiced full-spectrum family medicine for 50 years and currently maintains an outpatient family medicine practice in Southern California, where she combines the wisdom of Ayurveda with the tools of modern medicine to help patients heal from a variety of acute and chronic conditions. Dr. Patel then served as medical director for Mind Body Medical Group in Carlsbad, California for 10 years, offering integrative medical consultations, and subsequently served as Chief Medical Officer for Chopra Global for 4 years. She is certified as an instructor of Ayurveda, yoga, and meditation, and enjoys making this teaching accessible to all. She is currently the Chief Medical Officer for the Gaja Collective, where she is lead educator for the Chopra Ayurvedic Health Certification Program, and also teaches for Chopra Meditation, Yoga, and Coaching certifications. She is also a faculty member at Yoga Veda Institute, where she teaches integrated anatomy and physiology, bringing together concepts in Western medicine and Ayurveda. She also offers mentorship programs and retreats where students can further their study and practice Ayurveda. So her website is drssheilapatel.com. I will leave the link in the comment section here. On behalf of all of us, Thank you for all the great work that you do, and welcome, ma'am. So, without further ado, let me hand over the microphone to Dr. Suhas. Let me now invite Dr. Suhas to present on sleep.
Thank you. Thank you, Janardhan. And it's always a pleasure to be with all of you. And I'm in great awe and fascinated by what you have created in the form of Easy Ayurveda. It is such a reliable, authentic source for hundreds and thousands of students and practitioners around the globe, where we are able to find some very, very authentic, genuine information, very easily available. And your smiling face and the way the ease and grace with which you teach is something which is very greatly appreciated by so many students. And I've heard that from many people, and really thank you and salute you for all your services that you and your team is doing. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks.
And thank you again for inviting me and Dr. Patel today. Me and Dr. Patel recently co-authored a book together called as The Awakened Sleep. And there's no pun intended when we title the book called as Awakened Sleep, because we all want to sleep and we all want to wake up refreshed. But is it possible that we can change the narrative of falling asleep, which is under the influence of tamas guna, feeling dull, heavy, groggy, toxic, and tired, and feeling not well rested? So is it possible to convert the tamasic nature of sleep into a sattvic nature of sleep? And I think that is the very premise of writing this book, where we talk a lot about in medicine, about the effect of sleep deprivation. Suddenly we are realizing how important sleep is, according to Western medicine. Few years ago, there was not a whole lot of discussion about sleep. And we have been talking about in Ayurveda for thousands and thousands of years, sleep as the pillar of health. In Trayopstamba in Ayurveda, as the three pillars of health, we have been talking about sleep. But modern medicine was not on board even a decade ago. When we have nothing else to do, what we do is sleep. It doesn't matter when you sleep. If you can get few hours of sleep, that is good enough. So suddenly we have come full circle. And I think that is the challenge with Western research, Western medicine sometimes. It is based on very shaky foundation, where it is coming out with things that we feel as if something that we knew all along, but this is being researched and revalidated over and over again. And sleep is another striking example of this situation. And frankly speaking, we still don't know why we laugh, why we cry, and why we sleep. And I think the elaborate explanation of sleep that we have in Ayurveda and all the Vedic sciences is phenomenal. Because it is something where we are barely recognizing the importance and the value of a good night's sleep, and how we can make this sleep as something which is much more spiritual. And the connotation of sleep which can be made spiritual is being elaborately discussed in various Upanishads and even in Bhagavad Gita. I think one of the main message that Bhagavad Gita talks about, that the world is a total illusion. And this illusion is very correlated with sleep. And the most striking verse of Bhagavad Gita from my perspective was Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam Tasyam Jagarti Sanyami Yasyam Jagarti Bhutani Sa Nisha Pashyato Mune. So it simply means that when the whole entire, all the beings are considered day, is considered to be the night for the ignorance or the wise. And what is all the creatures and all the human beings considered as night is the day for the fully awake introspective sage. What it simply means is that this influence of Maya, and that is the striking feature in many of the Vedic literature, where we have talked about sleep as a goddess. Nidra is a feminine gender, and it is correlated with the goddess sleep, Yogamaya. And there's a beautiful hymn in Vedic literature, in Devi Purana, in Markandeya Purana, which actually correlates the goddess of sleep with Yogamaya. And in Ayurveda also, we have heard so many poetic terms for sleep as Bhutadhatri, where it is something which nurtures all the living beings to a certain extent. And especially the poetic connotation that it talks about in the Vedic literature. Om Vishveshwari Jagadhatri Sthiti Samharakarinam Nidram Bhagavatim Vishnor Atulam Tejasa Prabhu. What it simply means is this Yogamaya and the praises in Ratri Sukta for the goddess sleep. The two sisters, Nisha, which is the night, and Usha, which is the dawn. So the polarities of the circadian medicine that it talks about, what we should use the day for, what we should use the night for, and invoking that energy and enhancing mind power. So before we started realizing this from the Western medicine, understanding that sleep and cognitive functions and the memory is so important, there's the actual references in Vedic literature where it talks about sleep and its benefit for cataloging all the information, for sharpening your memory, sharpening your intellect, and changing your life. Because Mahavidya, Mahamaya, Mahamedha, Mahasmriti, Mahamoha cha bhavati, Mahadevi, Mahasuri. So, as I said, it sounds poetic, but every word can be medically validated by the modern race. So, the great memory, the great intellect, dispeller of the ignorance that we talk about, and the influence of all the three gunas, the prakriti, the sagun quality of the prakriti, is quite clearly expressed in this expression of sleep itself. Nidra Devi, the goddess of sleep, and there's a huge spiritual significance to it. And we all fall into this slumber in the night, and we are awake, we are falling asleep, we are dreaming, and at some point, we escape these three states of consciousness into the fourth state of consciousness, which is called as Turyatit Chetana. And this is explained in Mandukya Upanishad, where it talks about Yogamaya is the divine power, where it allows you to find that gap which dispels the power of illusion, and you are able to tap into that field of creative energy. And I think we are realizing this fact that if we can sleep and tap into the creative power, and we have mentioned that in our book, where so many inventions and discoveries happened in deep sleep, when they were completely withdrawn with their senses, and they were able to tap into that field from where they were able to actually see things as they are. The double-stranded structure of DNA was conceived in deep sleep. The periodic table of Mendeleev was conceived in deep sleep. Means we can go on and talk about so many examples of, we can call them as dream, we can call them as lucid dreams. Lucid simply means lighted, illuminated, which simply means it suddenly sheds light on something that is dark. And where does it come from? It comes from when you lose the touch and the contact of your sensory faculties. And I think that is the description of sleep. When the senses are withdrawn and when you fall asleep and you slowly progress to that state. And that's the state of the metaphysical role of the sleep that we want to highlight in awakened sleep. We are trying to establish this connection of Nidra Devi and Yogamaya, which actually talks about dispelling the illusion and creating altered state of consciousness. So what you do right before you go to sleep is so important. What you do right before you go to sleep is so important because it is allowing you to actually tap into something where you are able to distinguish between what is real, what is unreal. And that state of consciousness, it should not be totally under the influence of tamas, where you're in the state of total sushupti, but in an awakened state of consciousness, which is the fourth state. It is the form of Yogamaya. It is the form of the Yoga Nidra. Even Lord Vishnu is under the influence of this state of Yogamaya itself. So I think we should slowly move away from the physical necessity of the sleep to a creative spiritual awakening. We sleep about 7, 8, 9 hours every night, and we spend about 1/3 of our life in sleeping. And can we use that time as to extend our meditation practice? So awakened sleep actually talks about using sleep as an extension to your meditation practice. All the tools, protocols, techniques that we have discussed in the book are pertaining to that, are pertaining to helping us understand that can we use these things to actually dispel some of those things. And some of you are familiar with the Ayurvedic text, and we always say that our senses create the distraction. And whenever your senses are kind of withdrawn and they are more focused, the mind is a little bit more relaxed and energized to actually leave the boundaries of the physical body. And that's what happens when we are dead and gone. In a way, we are doing a dress rehearsal of dying every night when we sleep, and we still wake up and show up next morning. And the Ayurvedic description that we know is Yadatu Manasi Klante Karmat Manam Klamanvita Vishayebhyo Nivartante Tada Swapati Manava. So when we say that these senses are withdrawn and the mind is energized and the body is also feeling energized because it is recharging the batteries, that is the physical benefit. From a chronobiological perspective, I'll let Dr. Sheila Patel address that aspect of it. But I think it's not only that timing, what it does and to the body and the physiological functioning, what happens in the sleep, including the brain function, including the heart function, including the digestive function. There are numerous physiological benefits, but still the creative potential, the lucid dreaming, slowly energizing your sleep that you wake up refreshed every morning. Ayurveda talks about 7 different types of sleep, and I don't want to go into great details about that today, and we should have a special webinar just on dreams and sleep itself where we talk about it. But all the 7 types, where tamo bhava, shleshma samudbhava, manas sharir shrama sambhava, agantuki, vyadhyanuvartini, ratri swabhav prasava, kala swabhava, all of those things are the types of sleep which are under the influence. And the fact is, yes, the natural state of sleep is to create that influence in the night to help you fall asleep at that time. So this whole debate where how much sleep we should get is something where it is given that after sunset, before sunrise is the time for you to stay asleep. And if you are able to use your sleep to fall asleep, stay asleep effortlessly, you are able to energize your entire physiology. And Ayurveda, again, very poetic. Nidrayattam sukham dukkham pushti karsha balabalam vrishata klibata jnanam ajnanam jivitam nacha. Everything, all these 10 pillars of opposite actually depends upon the quality of the sleep. It's one of the most efficient way to improve your health. You eliminate toxins, you create order from the chaotic situations of your life, you renew, you repair, you boost your immunity, you definitely improve your cognitive function and memory. And it's a state of unconscious processing that happens in sleep itself. You often say, let me sleep on that. You solidify and you create this decluttering of your brain. It helps you think clearly, reduces the chances of this metabolic imbalances, which is leading to diabetes, heart disease, variety of different things that we talk about. And the most important thing that we are discussing in the book, in Awakened Sleep, is about the place of non-local being that you can easily transcend in your sleep, where you are able to watch and witness your non-local being and tap into your creativity. So I think we can go on and talk a lot about this, but I'll let Dr. Patel talk about the medical benefits of sleep, what we know from the current medical research, and the chronobiological implications of sleep. Dr. Patel?
Thank you, Dr. Suhas, and thank you for enlightening us. He's been my wonderful teacher as well over the years. And thank you, Dr. Hebar, for having us here. I'm so excited, and thank you for your wonderful talk at the California Association of Ayurvedic Medicine recently. We were there together, and you did a wonderful talk on mental health and psychiatric illness, which is very, very important. And again, as Dr. Suhas mentioned, the risk of everything, physical health, mental illness, all goes up when we don't sleep. Our risk goes up. So we know sleep is a very natural process. We are born with the ability to fall asleep. It's one of the Vegas, right? Like these urges we have that are biological. They're just wired into us so that we have this balance of activity and rest. Unfortunately, about a third of the people in the world are having problems right now with sleep. And there's many reasons for that, and we talk about that again as well in the book. But it is one of the, I would say 8 out of 10 people I see in my primary care practice here, either it's one of their primary issues, or when I ask them because they're having physical ailments, again, diabetes, obesity, heart disease, even brain health, dementia, anxiety, depression. If I ask about sleep, then most of them are having trouble sleeping. So as a physician, I became interested, and I was always interested in Ayurveda, but I started learning about it more when I started with the Chopra Center about 16 years ago. And everything, as you all know, in Ayurveda really gives us the answers that we need. And so I was hooked and wanted to keep learning and learning more, because that's really where the answers lie. And luckily now science is catching up to validate a lot of the explanations and the practices that Ayurveda gives us. It very likely won't be able to answer all of them, but at least it gives us, especially me when I talk to a Western audience or other physicians, that scientific validation for what Ayurveda teaches us. So again, sleep is a natural urge. We know how to sleep, right? What happens? This is another thing in Ayurveda that's very important, is we try to get to the root cause. So something's getting in the way of our ability to sleep. And that, again, can be many things. A lot of times in the modern world, it's the stress and sensory overload. So we overload our senses. We were just talking about the sensory, closing out the senses and going inward when we sleep. But during the day, we're constantly barraged by all of this sensory input, and Ayurveda teaches us these are the gateways to the mind. So when our senses are overloaded, constantly looking at screens or whatever it is, just having our eyes open, all the sound, all the noises, especially in modern environments, there's so much noise. And there's some really interesting studies on the effects of noise pollution on our brain health and inflammation in the body, and how that leads to chronic stress. And all of those things lead to sleep issues. So in the modern world, we're more overstimulated than anything. And all of the senses connect to the nervous system. So all sensory impressions come in and leave an imprint on our nervous system. And our nervous system is constantly surveying everything around us. And when it's overstimulated, and that can be from too much work, too much sensory input, too many, stress, then it's wired to not allow us to sleep deeply. So that's a problem, right? When we're, and there's a biological necessity for that. When we're in threat, we don't want to sleep too deeply because we want to be able to hear something and wake up and respond to it. But in our modern context, that's not typically the case. And so we have to have practices that calm the senses and that calm the nervous system. And this is where all of the tools of Ayurveda, which include yoga, meditation, pranayama, all of those practices really can help us to calm the nervous system. So these are practices that I teach all of my patients, really, and really have that education and conversation with them about the nervous system and the senses and sensory input, and just to be aware that all of that is getting processed at night and oftentimes waking us up or not allowing us to go to sleep. And so we have a whole chapter on the senses in the book because it's so important in this 5-sense therapy that Ayurveda gives us, and this awareness, mindfulness of our senses. And the quality of our night is dependent on the quality of our entire day, from the time we get up in the morning till the time we lay down at night. So it's important to consider all of the things that are happening in the day and have these turn off switches before we go to bed. In that 2 hours before bedtime, very important, but so is the whole rest of the day. And I'll talk about circadian rhythms in a minute. So we have to consider all of the activity throughout the day. and how that impacts our sleep. And then we know, of course, our sleep impacts our day. So even from not having one night of sleep, the cognitive part of our brain is less active. So what does that mean? We can't problem solve. We can't think clearly. We might have brain fog. Everybody's experienced that. Our reflexes aren't as good. So there, is a higher chance of car accidents, and even we can't emotionally regulate as well. So you might have more arguments with people the day after. So there are these acute things that happen even after one night of not sleeping. And again, we'll talk about stages of sleep, because there are emotional processing that's happening also when we're sleeping that helps us to clear all of the emotional burdens, that we accumulate throughout the day. So that also, there are many, many chronic problems that can happen. So we know acute issues. And then if these things become chronic, if the cognitive processing isn't there, then and we also start to have memory issues. Lack of good quality sleep is associated with dementia, Alzheimer's disease, anxiety, depression, all of these things that we're seeing on the rise, and also with physical issues. All the chronic diseases now have been associated with lack of sleep, and sleep science is, really, again, starting to delineate all of these mechanisms. But a lot of it has to do with increased inflammation. And we know when we don't sleep, we have more inflammation in the body, and that leads to diabetes, heart disease, pain is worse when we don't sleep, and really all of the chronic diseases. So we know there are all of these health complications when we don't sleep. So getting to the root cause is very important. Taking out what's interfering with our sleep and bringing in support of our natural processes that we already have to sleep. So those are the two things we need to do. So I try to make it simple when I teach people. So take out what's interfering with your sleep. And sometimes that's very individualized. You have to go through and I always ask people, walk me through your typical day, like from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to sleep. And you spend time and have them do that awareness practice of what they're doing all day long, and identify what can they remove that's that's interfering with their sleep, and then help them with practices that support their natural sleep. So one of the most important things is aligning ourselves with the natural rhythm. So this is the circadian rhythm that Dr. Suhas had just mentioned. And circadian rhythm, we have many biological rhythms. Circadian rhythm is our rhythm throughout the day, from day and night. It's one day, about a day. Circadian, that is literally what that means, about a day. And we also have seasonal rhythms, monthly rhythms, all of these things that Ayurveda describes so well. And one of the ones that has the most science around it currently, I'm sure it will all be validated over time, is this daily rhythm. And it's very, very important to align our lifestyle and our practices with nature's rhythms. So from the moment we wake up, looking at the morning, morning light, very important. It sets our circadian rhythm for the day, so we know it's day, and then it's easier to fall asleep at night. So one of the most important things is to wake up and look out of a window or into the sky and get that morning light, however you can. And then having a regular schedule. So just like nature has regular cycles and regular schedules, it's very important for our body to know what is going to happen, and we can teach the body. It's very teachable and trainable. So the time you wake up and the time you go to sleep should be fairly regular every night. And then the body gets trained to naturally fall asleep and wake up at these times without even an alarm clock. We see this in animals and pets, right? They don't know what a clock looks like, but yet they always know when it's 4:30 or 5 o'clock, when it's their walking time, their feeding time, and then they sleep. And so we, unfortunately, as humans, have become very disconnected from our natural rhythms, but establishing a regular rhythm is very important. And as close as that can be to, nature's cycles, and depending on where you live, sometimes you adjust that with the season. If the day is a little longer or shorter, that there's a little flexibility there, but it should be regular meal times. When we eat regular meal times, then again, the body knows what's happening, and it will do for us what it's intended to do without us even having to think about it. So not doing certain things toward the evening time, not eating a heavy meal within 2 to 3 hours of bed, not doing too vigorous of exercise. We want to support that natural kapha time where now we're wired to sort of slow down. And if we're doing vigorous activity at night, we're fighting what the biology wants to do. So aligning ourselves with these nature's rhythms helps to nourish and support our sleep. And when we sleep, then, this is very important, what happens, there's a lot of brain studies and neuroscience around what happens when we sleep. There's various stages from a scientific perspective. There's non-REM, REM is rapid eye movement sleep, when we're dreaming. That's REM sleep is another word for that. And non-REM has different stages. Non-REM sleep is divided up into the first stage, which is actually just that time from when we're going from wakefulness to sleep and when we're waking up. Science doesn't know too much about this, and it's very short for most people, about 5 minutes as we're falling asleep and waking up. But there's a lot of potential there. And this is where I'm fascinated with the Ayurvedic and Vedic philosophy and metaphysics of sleep, because with Yoga Nidra and with other deep relaxation practices, you can extend that stage. And what we see, yes, are alpha waves during this time. These are the brain waves that you can detect. Alpha waves are relaxing when our eyes are closed and we're relaxed. But we also see theta waves. These are waves, brain waves that we see during meditation. So there's opportunities in all of these sleep stages to tap into that creativity that Dr. Suhas was talking about, the intuition, the problem solving. And that's that first stage of non-dream sleep, non-REM sleep. Then we go into light sleep, which a lot of things happen during that sleep. There's more theta waves. So we're getting into deeper relaxation. And again, using sleep as a meditation. There's also these classic electrical findings that they're called spindles. And what is thought is that that's coming from the midbrain, the emotional brain, where it's starting to kind of shut down the sensory input, because we need to do that with withdrawing the senses in order then to get to the next stage of deep sleep. And in deep sleep, we see these delta waves, which is classic for going into deep sleep. And during that time, our brain is actually very active. We think it's a dull, it is dull in the body and as far as awareness, but the brain is cleaning itself out, getting rid of, the lymphatic system in the brain is very active during that time. The body is healing, digestion, cellular metabolism and digestion is happening. The liver is detoxifying. So a lot of things happening during that deep sleep stage. And then we cycle through, and then we go a little bit into REM sleep or dream state. And this is where a lot of emotional processing happens. So again, if we're not getting enough REM sleep, then we may not be processing not only our emotions from the day before, but subconscious emotions. So we see alpha and beta waves, alpha meaning relaxation, we're sleeping, but beta are the brain waves we see when we're actually awake. So again, we're dreaming and we're going through all of these activities in our mind. And as we do that, we're processing a lot of the emotions that we have. So all of these stages are very important. Different things are happening. Memory consolidation is happening during several of these times in different ways. And so we cycle through these stages throughout the night. About 90 minutes or so we're cycling through, but we do most of our deep sleep in the pitta time of the night, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And we do most of our dream sleep during the vata stage of the night, 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. So it correlates very nicely to what Ayurveda teaches. So again, there's many, many things that are happening when we're sleeping that we're starting to identify, in science, through science, that really gives us the ability to have these conversations and have I feel shared dual knowledge, that Ayurveda and people have understood these things for thousands of years. And this is a way we can understand it scientifically. There's no contradictions here. It's really validating what people have known for a long time. And so it was very exciting to be able to write this book with Dr. Suhas, who shares such deep wisdom, in Vedic wisdom and Ayurvedic knowledge. And, really our hope is that it makes all of really primarily the Ayurvedic practices and teachings accessible to people, so that people can thrive. We don't only want to get to neutral health, we want to be able to thrive and live to our fullest potential. And that involves awakening our creativity, awakening our intuition, and sleep is really, and meditation, and sleep as a meditative tool, they're the best ways to really, awaken our potential. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Sheilaji. And I think what she's talking about is so fascinating, because when we look at this, we can divide the entire day and night into these two phases that she's talking about. One is governed by serotonin, the other governed by melatonin. So melatonin is the cooling hormone that allows the body to fall asleep in the night, and serotonin which stimulates. So serotonin can be simply correlated with sun, and melatonin can be correlated with moon. So I think these are the two polarities of sun and moon that our life is occupied, and that's what Ayurveda has been talking about. Is that right? Is the dominance of sun and moon. Even when we celebrate our gods and goddesses, they are all correlated with this aspect of science. When we celebrate Lord Rama was born in the middle of the day. So is the Raghukula, is the sun dynasty of Rama that we celebrate, which is the serotonin, the solar aspect of our life. Krishna was born in the middle of the night. So at midnight, it is the lunar dynasty. Is that right? So Surya Vamshi, Chandra Vamshi. We are celebrating the chronobiological aspect of every time you say Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, you are celebrating the solar lunar dominance in our physiology. Even when we look at the basic aspect of Samadosha, Samagnishta, Samadhatu, Malakriyaha, that is the first aspect of the physiological expression that is active throughout the day. But what is active and what is happening in the night is prasannatmendriya manaha swasthitintya. So that whole aspect of relaxation that is cultivated in sleep. So science is barely catching up. It doesn't know about vata, pitta, kapha qualities affecting your sleep. It doesn't talk about sattvic, rajasic, tamasic qualities, gunas affecting your sleep. It doesn't talk about using sleep. It just classifies it based on brain waves. And that is very physical, objective nature of the science, where we are still trying to find a spot where the sleep happens. And it doesn't happen in there. It is a consciousness-based tool. It is a consciousness-based practice. As we still don't know where we store memories, we still don't know where we store our sleep and what happens when we sleep, where do we go when we sleep. And I think Vedic scriptures have better answers to all of this than what the science is telling us about. So the purpose of this book, and I'll open this floor for questions and answers, was to really help us understand that from an Ayurvedic perspective, we can go out and tell the science that we have to get over this objective nature of this many hours of sleep for this much person, everybody, to create a metaphysical aspect of sleep. As we do our meditation, what happens in our sleep, if we can program our mind before we go to sleep. So right before you sleep, the techniques that we mention in the book, clear your thoughts, prepare yourself as you're preparing for your meditation, you relax your body, you awaken the tool, and you fall asleep. And we see that and we hear that from so many people, that they are creating a nature of awakened sleep, which is energizing them, which is making them creative, which is making them very intellectually sharp and agile. And more importantly, they are able to probably shed light on something which their senses cannot really meet during the daytime, when everything is super busy and chaotic itself. So I think we'll open it for Q&A, and I'll pass it on to my friend Janardhan here.
Thank you for the enlightening, awakening talk on sleep. So much it coincides with the title of the book, Awaken Sleep itself. I shared the link, Amazon link to the book. I hope we all read and learn from it. So there is a question here. So brain waves are the effect, not the cause, with cause being states of consciousness?
Yes, I'll answer, and then Dr. Suhas, you can answer as well. But yes, exactly. So in science and in medicine, what we're measuring is the effect. We don't, because the paradigm isn't complete, we can't answer the why or where it's coming from. So we just focus, we meaning, I do enjoy looking at the science, and, that's the world of medicine, but we're measuring the effect. So again, this is that duality of matter comes first versus consciousness is the ground state. And of course, in the Vedic philosophy and in Ayurvedic, knowledge, consciousness is the ground state of reality. So everything happens within consciousness, and we're just observing the effects of that. So when we enter these different states of sleep, we can see what happens, but that doesn't explain why it's happening. And this is where I think the Vedic philosophy, as Dr. Suhas was saying, helps us understand at a deeper level what's happening. But and some of those things we likely will never be able to measure because they're immeasurable. But it gives us a little window into understanding when we have this good sleep, what's happening in the body, to again have, be able to explain it in a sort of more modern way. But it's they're the effect of what's the type of sleep that we're having. Yes. And again, the reason I brought those up is I feel like there's so much potential. There are all these times during our sleep where we're tapping into consciousness, and they're using the practices in awakened sleep. We can extend those times during our sleep where then we would see the effect of that. We would see more of the types of waves that you see when you're meditating.
Well, and I agree, because the effect is what we are measuring. Anything that is measured is not consciousness. Okay, anything that is being measured. The word measurement is another word for Maya. So it's an illusion when you are measuring something. Mm-hmm. And something that is immeasurable is the nature of Atma, is the nature of consciousness. So the states of the consciousness, the svabhava, the natural states of consciousness, is Jagrut, Swapna, and Sushupti, which are the first 3 states of consciousness. And the next 4, which are the 7 states of consciousness, are all happening after you slip into the gap of Turiyati. And it is clearly explained in a variety of different Upanishads and all the Vedic literature. The cause is the nature of this consciousness. And we actually see the effect, what we are trying to measure. And still, we are into the state where we are understanding that whether this measurement is applicable to certain sleep. But what we know now is that these states of consciousness, that you can go into even a quick, short meditation during the day. If you're doing a meditation during the afternoon or early in the morning, you can easily reach to almost all the state that you hit in your sleep during those 20 minutes of meditation also. Yeah,
and I'll add to that as well. So science is always changing because the tools that we measure things with change and become so I expect all of this to evolve over time, and what we're able to measure is what's happening in the cortical brain. So we can't actually measure what's happening in the deep parts of the brain, which where the emotional brain is, and you would need probes to go into those parts of the brain. So we have these external devices, and it's really just measuring what's happening in only certain areas of the brain. So even that is a very elementary understanding of what's happening in the brain while we sleep. Yeah.
Great question. Thank you. And the book, I just want to remind everyone, is ready for pre-ordering. It's not ready to order and read right away. It'll be released sometimes toward the end of September this year. But I think it's a good idea that we are all teaming up with eminent physicians and scientists like Dr. Patel to shed light on this very mystical, hidden science, which Ayurveda has a lot to say about. And I think we as Ayurvedic practitioners need to be bold and strong enough to really understand our strength and talk about it from the field, and blending the modern science with the authentic Vedic sciences, I would say.
Dr. Suhas, You come from Ayurveda and spiritual realm, and Dr. Sheila comes from the modern science realm. Uh, any tips for us, the Ayurveda fellows, like how to collaborate and team up and get them on board? Of course, it is net and net positive for everyone that we are getting the both best of the both worlds, and when the minds come from when the different minds and different science background approach the same topic, it creates myriad of opinions and views, and it unearths more truths than we do a solo effort.
Well, I think one of my simple tip would be we both work closely with Dr. Deepak Chopra, who has been a kind of pioneer in mind-body medicine. And he used the modern medical science to explain very deep-rooted concepts of Vedas and Upanishads very articulately. And so we're very inspired and motivated by his teachings. But one thing which I would say from my perspective is not allow yourselves to get stuck into only Ayurveda and Ayurvedic readings only. We're to expand ourselves to not only modern medicine, but also variety of different Vedic literature. And I like to do that, whether you're talking about Jyotish, whether you talk about yoga or yoga sutras, whether you talk about variety of different Puranas, understanding them, reading more about it, and correlating that back to health and wellness. Because everything is related with the state of health. Everybody wants to talk about health and wellness from an Ayurvedic perspective. But when we add all the diverse perspective from all the darshanas and Vedic literature, then it enriches what we are talking about. And I think Ayurveda from beginning has done this. Is that right? We use Sankhya for one thing. We use Vaisheshika for one thing. We use variety of different rules and philosophies that come from diverse modes. And I think modern day Ayurvedic doctors need to do that even more. And I think that would be my advice. Sheila, you would want to add anything to this?
Yeah, I think the opportunity is just growing for collaboration, because I think from this side as well, I think physicians need to understand we need to look at these other paradigms for healing to learn, because obviously modern medicine is not giving us the answers to everything. Yes, maybe acute care and emergency care, etc. And even in those settings, you can bring in breath work, you can bring in things that help people. But so that's what I try to do. And there is a growing number of physicians and other health practitioners in the States that are going to Ayurveda and to learn, and it's, to fill in the blanks, and then looking to collaborate. So I think, just getting out and, going to conferences or, where you'll meet a diverse mix of people and, just networking like that. But more and more people that I can see here in the West that are graduated from the Ayurvedic programs here, where they naturally kind of are trying to make it more accessible to, a wider audience. I would say read their books. There are many people out there now writing books. Obviously, Deepak was one of the pioneers, but there were many that spoke in a way that could explain things, in a modern context. So I think it's going to be easier and easier to collaborate over time.
Well, and when Dr. Hebbar was here for the CAM conference, he was talking about mental health and emotional health. And it's such a pandemic, I would say. It's a global problem, the mental and emotional health, the loneliness, the fear, social isolation. And I think sleep, that brings up all those fears in a very condensed manner. You are facing the night, you're alone in dark, you're feeling lonely, cold, and dark. The fear of unknown becomes very, very strong at that time. So the spiritual strength, a meditation, a technique that allows you to feel grounded and connected with something bigger, better, and greater than yourself, that dispels that fear, is so important. And so even from an Ayurvedic perspective, healing perspective, when you bring in the Vedic counseling, the Vedantic philosophy in your education, in how you talk and communicate to your patient, is so important, because that is what is going to dispel the fear. That is what is going to motivate them. So this whole integration of Vedanta. And when we teach, me and Sheila teach this to Western physicians and doctors, they all ask us the question, should we take out the white coat and put on saffron robes? And we tell them, why not? Because at the end of the day, it's the individualized approach. If you can tell people to understand the philosophical basis of life, the spiritual way of living, and that's what Ayurveda is. Ayurveda is enlightened living. Is that right? The very mission statement of Ayurveda is Ayurvedo Amritana. For God's sake, Ayurveda for immortality. Okay? So if we don't integrate these teachings in our communications with our patients, then we are back to prescribing pills and tools which are going to have objective results to a certain extent. So changing people will come from the information which is going to empower and enlighten them as well as us. And I think that would be the kind of purpose, mission, dharma that we have embarked on. That's how we live, that's how we teach, and that's what we want to share through our books and different things.
Dr. So one thing that you told about, like many of the enlightened souls get all their spiritual ideas in the sleep. One famous example that I came across recently was the famous mathematician, if not the most famous mathematician to ever live, Ramanujan. He was getting the dreams where Namagiri Tayar, the mother goddess, was giving all these formulas which he would then wake up and write. Do you have some tips to how to spiritualize the sleep rather than just we are vertical and then suddenly we become horizontal and just put our head and slam our head onto the bed? Rather than that, is there any way we can hack the sleep, so to speak, to make it more spiritual?
Well, I think yes, we have described elaborate practices through techniques from Ayurveda and spirituality. But the first and the most important thing I would say is, we have mentioned that in the book, is something called as pick the weeds. So begin by dumping any thoughts, issues, or concerns of the day that you are still thinking in your head, and either blurt it on a piece of paper or just release those thoughts in your mind. And then start planting the seeds. Start planting the seeds of what you want to manifest right before you sleep. Look at your life, recapitulate your entire day, and once you have picked the weeds, once you have cleaned the field, then put at least 3 or 4 intentions or desires, positive present moment ideas, affirmations in your life in that space, as if you are planting the seeds. And then as you are preparing to sleep, you're watering the garden with a degree of gratitude, what you have about everything in your life. You can use certain mantras, you can use some affirmations, thoughts, things like that you're simply grateful for, because that is a very positive thought. You want to replace, and that's the age-old Patanjali Sutra where Pratipaksha Bhavana, you have to replace something which is negative to something positive. You are expressing gratitude, you are expressing thankfulness, and cultivating and watering the garden, and then sleep like a sage. And you fall asleep, and when you wake up in the middle of the night, go back to the same thought, go back to the same mantra that you use in meditation, go back to the same situation that you look at yourself as if you are in a sakshi state where you're watching and witnessing yourself and your life, instead of participating and trying to force certain things happen with just the thoughts itself. So as you prepare for sleep, and as you are cultivating these intentions, and make it a habit, because that's what everybody says, that when you are making it as a habit, that you're energizing your sleep every night, then the sleep becomes an energetic process, and is 100% portable. You can take it on the road wherever you go. With just those few minutes before you go to sleep, you have to get into that space of doing this. And if you extend your meditation practice at that 10-15 minutes before you go to sleep, it slowly reprograms everything that happens in the sleep itself.
Yes, yeah, I agree that when we're in ego mind, and so the thoughts of the day, what we have to do tomorrow, all of that is really keeping us from accessing. We are consciousness, so all of that is already there. We are just creating the veils, so to speak, right? And so these practices, whether it's journaling and somehow getting rid of all of the, or calming down the mind, right? Calming down all the ego mind thoughts that we have. And then calming the body somewhat, doing some gentle stretching or breathing, because even during the day, the reason we're not awakened is because the body's, uncomfortable or distracted, or we're identifying with the body so much, or we're in our thoughts all the time. So how can we access consciousness when we're obstructing that, that path? So same thing, we want to kind of calm the body, quiet the mind. That's why we don't want to eat, again, too much, too heavy before sleep, because then the body is active. So then we're not going to access that consciousness that's there. So it's always there for us, right? And so that's, and then like Dr. Suhas said, what are those last things that you're going to sleep with? It needs to be in that space of, spiritual thought, mantra, just pure awareness by just, sometimes I tell people just connect to your breath as you're falling asleep. If it's your thoughts, that's what's going to happen at night. You're not going to access that creativity. Creativity comes from consciousness. So we have to establish ourselves in that before we go to sleep, set those intentions. It could even be, I intend to, access creativity in my sleep. And that's the last thing, you go to sleep with. So yeah, we have to, as opposed to, watching something or our phone or whatever it is as we fall asleep, to exhaust our mind so much that we fall asleep. We're not going to be able to access it if we're doing all of those things. So, so there are several, many practices, and I think it's different for everyone. Everyone will resonate with some different practices, but the concept is the same. We have to, kind of calm and clear the mind from all the day and the ego thoughts. We have to, support the body, so it's restful and, and in good balance, so that then we can awaken. So, yeah.
And as I said, that even the modern techniques that people are going to schools and taking classes and courses to improve their sleep, and it's such a dumb idea to go to school to learn how to sleep, because that's the most natural state that everybody is born and blessed with. To go to a school and learn cognitive behavioral therapy to improve your sleep is the same thing. How cognitively you change your behavior as a sleep hygiene. So there's a reason why Ayurveda has talked about Ratri Charya. Okay, they talk about Dinacharya, we talk about Ratri Charya as well. So I think the Ratri Charya is so important, whether you pacify the Vata, whether you do Padabhanga, whether you do hot shower, whether you do herbal bath, whether you do a warm cup of milk, all of those techniques that we talk about as a good, healthy evening routine. Something sattvic, something pure, something calming your mind. Mm-hmm. Allowing yourself, could be aromatherapy, and even some smells that creates a neuroassociative memory with the sleep. That every night I take a sniff of eucalyptus oil or peppermint oil. It just allows the mind that, yes, I'm ready to fall asleep. Because you do it every night, the body knows. When you smell, it's ready, time to go to sleep. We train animals to do that. We can train ourselves to do that, because it's just a neuroassociative way of doing that. And so all of these things that we do for balancing Vata, balancing doshas, giving yourself time. And I think that is the biggest problem with the modern pace of life, that we think it's switch on and switch off, that we suddenly close the light and we are ready to sleep. It doesn't happen that way. You have to slowly prepare yourself and unwind so that you can go to sleep and stay asleep that way. And I think it takes time for you to develop this as a habit. And what we do in meditation also, you're closing your eyes, you're focusing on your breath, you're going to your mantra. That's exactly what we're doing right before you go to sleep. Using breath, using sound, using five sense therapy to ground, to withdraw, to relax. That's exactly what we're doing as few minutes before you go to sleep, and you allow your sleep to enter into a complete different dimension, I would say.
And also, I believe that we cannot like hack ourselves into spiritual sleep, or get some magical spiritual benefits out of our sleep. For that to happen, throughout the 24 hours, we had to be spiritual oriented. It cannot be so that I'm axe murderer in the day and suddenly I become spiritual and gain some spiritual milestones, mileage. during the sleep. So to regulate the sleep, one has to have a 24 hours effort rather than just the pre-sleep regimen.
Well, I think you are bringing a very interesting point, and I don't want to talk a whole lot about it because we'll need few more webinars to discuss this. Because the individual karma of every individual is a little bit more alive in that deeper states of consciousness in your sleep. So the nature of the dream that you are going to have. And we have so many examples. Gautam Buddha's mother had this dream before the child was born. We talk about pregnancy dreams. And Ayurveda has talked about all these swapnas as positive swapnas, as arishtalingas and things like that. So I think we need another session to talk about all of this, where you can energize your sleep and empower yourself with some power of good, positive, lucid dreaming.
Thank you very much. Thank you all the participants for your active participation and comments and questions. And on behalf of all of us from Easy Ayurveda community, my words of gratitude to Dr. Sheila Patel and Dr. Suhas. Awakened Sleep is a book. Is going to get released, and my best wishes to the grand success of this book.
Thank you, JV, and thank you again for inviting us.
Thank you.